Assemblyman Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to the panel. I appreciate, I think it's Section 9, talking about the RTI provisions. You know, my hope would be that should we identify people that are having problems that, we could, get them some support before they, have to get qualified for special ed services. I think that's a good provision. I wanted to ask about maybe where kids that have dyslexia are falling now, because the RTI process already exists. You have the different levels, and so might it be a semantics issue?
No, not at all.
I just wanted because I know that the learning disability category can sometimes be categorized. It can be a very broad term, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's not focusing as directly on what the specific issues are, and maybe it's a matter of exactly what services. But can you help me understand how exactly you would parse out the difference between just a general learning disability and dyslexia, because that's what I'm trying to get my head around.
Dyslexia is listed under specific learning disability in our Nevada revised statutes, in IDEA, and other bills. Only 10% of dyslexics ever get referred for testing in special ed, and only about 10% of those students ever qualify. Yes, 80% of the people in or children in special ed under specific learning disability are there because of dyslexia, but most of our children never get tested and never get serviced. And you asked where they are? They're falling between the cracks. We're not allowed to even address the idea of dyslexia. It is a hidden disability, and even though I'm trained to screen for dyslexia, and I bet I have a 90% or higher success rate with just my observations and my experience, we're just not even allowed to use that knowledge within the school district.
Just a quick comment, if I might, Madam Chair. I certainly understand what you're saying with problems with identification. We took testimony during the interim about how busy our counselors and psychologists are, and they do spend an inordinate amount of time doing evaluations, and actually not even evaluations, re-evaluations, because there's such a great need out there. And I think that part of it, the problem that I think we face is a resources issue with getting the right personnel, making sure that we get enough psychologists and counselors and social workers that can help us solve some of these problems, hopefully even in the RTI phase. That would be my hope, and I think that we bear some of that burden even outside of this bill, that the legislature needs to provide those resources so we can get more kids identified for what their specific issue is.
I want to make this clear that by identifying them for dyslexia or as a dyslexic, I don't necessarily want them in special ed. That, I believe, we could really eliminate a lot of our students going into that direction. Right now, we still operate in public education on this wait to fail model, where there has to be a 2-year discrepancy between their ability and their performance. I know we've tried to do away with that, but it's still in practice within the schools. I want to get to the dyslexics early so that they learn in the appropriate manner that really applies to their disability. I don't want them under the SPED umbrella if I can help it. I would like them possibly to have accommodations on the 504, which is under the American Disabilities Act. I prefer that to them going under the special ed umbrella. So I'm thinking that fiscally this is a very responsible bill, and eventually we would save a lot of money through special ed departments and such.
And Madam Chair, James Orenshaw, for the record, if I might chime in. I've had parents in Washoe and Clark County, parents of small children, contact me about this bill, tell me that they are worried their child is dyslexic. They've contacted the school, and the school's told them there's nothing we can do and we're not going to provide the testing. The parents who've contacted me have the resources to go out and find a child psychologist or a neuropsychologist and have tests performed on their own. But so many of our constituents don't have those kinds of means. That's why I think it's important that AB 341 be seriously considered. And I believe Ms. Cavallaro also had a comment.
Just the RTI process. In the RTI process, none of those programs, those reading programs, are targeted to dyslexics. And that's why they stay in RTI way too long. and they never get identified there either. And so if we, I know that the RTI is part of the process, but it could be totally done away with this screening. Those kids wouldn't even be in RTI because we know what the issue is. Dyslexia has been around for a very long time. We know exactly what their brain structure is. Their language center is, their brain structure is absolutely different, and they're using a different part of their brain to process language. And that is why they have trouble with phonemic awareness and manipulating the sounds in language. Again, it's not tied to intelligence. These kids are very intelligent. And I believe that a lot of this, the failure of the schools to recognize what's going on is lack of training and lacking of want to address the issue, because most districts don't want more kids in special ed. And that's what we're here to say, is they don't need to be. We don't want them there because they don't get